If you're flying to London tonight, there's no need to self-isolate when you arrive on Saturday. That's where new rules kick in.
A new survey shows increasing satisfaction with public cleanliness in Singapore, including in hawker centres.
And a highly contagious and fatal disease that affects only rabbits has been detected here.
Hello, you're watching The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quay.
And I'm Haryanto Diman. Now you can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
11 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed today, the lowest daily figure in about 6 months since March 12, when there were 9 cases.
Today's cases included one community patient who is a Singaporean. There was also one imported case. Now more details will be announced later tonight. Meanwhile, starting tomorrow, anybody travelling from Singapore to England and Scotland will not have to self-quarantine for 14 days on arrival. The British Transport Secretary said Singapore will be added to the travel corridor list of countries from 4 a.m. UK time on Saturday. Since the UK announced the introduction of travel corridors in July, the list has changed frequently, often at short notice.
Well, Singapore's addition to the quarantine-free list comes as the number of new daily COVID-19 cases in the UK remains high at around 3,000 a day. Just this week, the government introduced a new rule banning social gatherings of more than 6 people.
Now, here are some things to take note of with these new rules. Are there any other measures in place I have to adhere to? Well, all passengers arriving in the UK, except those who travelled from Ireland, the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man and stayed in those places for at least 14 days, will have to complete a passenger locator form. The form can be filled in up to 48 hours before their arrival in the UK. There is currently no requirement for travellers entering England to be tested for COVID-19.
For those itching to travel, can I now hop on a plane to go on a holiday to England? Well, with the removal of the quarantine requirement, you will be able to begin your holiday immediately upon arrival from Singapore if you have met the requirements. However, any travel will be at your own risk. Experts have warned that a second wave of virus infections could break across Europe in the coming months.
So, if I holiday in England and return to Singapore, do I need to be quarantined? Yes, according to our government's advisory, all travellers returning from places other than Australia, except Victoria State, Macau, China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei and New Zealand will have to serve 14-day stay-home notices at dedicated facilities. In addition, if you left Singapore from March 27th and returned here, you will have to bear the cost of COVID-19 tests and stay at a dedicated quarantine facility, which costs about $200 and $2,000 respectively.
Well, Cornelius Chong is one of many Singaporeans affected by this change. He will fly to the UK tonight to start his first semester at the London School of Economics. So, Cornelius, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on before your flight. Well, this change spells good news for you, we expect, but has this announcement disrupted your plans you had already put in place, like where you had planned to self-isolate, for example?
No, it definitely doesn't change my plans. So with or without quarantine, I'll still be isolating or staying at my university accommodation. So definitely this has been a pleasant surprise because as compared to quarantine, you have to stay in the dorm for 14 days, but now you can afford to go out and to eat, etc. So definitely no disruption. It has been a pleasant surprise for me.
And do you know what to expect when you touch down at Heathrow Airport, in terms of health protocol perhaps?
I'm expecting a quite seamless and quick procedure because I have some friends who have gone on to London already a few days ago. So apparently it's a very quick process. So now, given that there's no quarantine, I expect it to be quite quick also. And in addition, we have to fill up a form 48 hours before we arrive to the UK. So it details all the mobile number, etc. So I expect it to be quite a quick and seamless process.
Right. Well, the UK reported nearly 3,400 new COVID-19 infections yesterday. So how will you keep yourself safe while you're studying over there?
Yeah, so definitely with or without quarantine, you have to do the basic stuff. So I'll intend to limit my social activities. I do not intend to go out too much to places, very crowded places. And of course, I have to practice basic hygiene, such as wearing my mask, sanitizing my hands frequently, not touching my face. These are the basic protocol. And of course, you have to take care of yourself over there because it's the COVID-19 infection rates is much higher than Singapore.
Right. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us, Cornelius, and of course, have a safe flight and all the best in London. That was Cornelius Chong.
That's right. Well, Cornelius is a Singaporean student making his way to the UK, where it was just announced that people arriving from Singapore will not need to quarantine. And you can read more on that at straitstimes.com. For some local headlines, the use of saliva testing to detect COVID-19 is undergoing field tests in Singapore. This as health authorities assess if it can be scaled for widespread use. The Health Ministry told the Straits Times that it's assessing factors like consistency and integrity of sample collection, efficiency of lab processes, as well as the ability to cater for high volumes of tests via pooled testing.
A company that operates foreign worker dormitories was fined $118,000 after the authorities inspected 4 facilities run by the firm and found that some rooms were filthy. Libertal Management Corporation and 2 Singaporean employees are the first to be convicted under the Foreign Employee Dormitories Act. Parviz Ahmed Muhammad Ghoz was fined $59,000 and Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Jalil was fined $22,000. Libertel is part of Property and Logistics Solutions company MES Group.
The Elections Department has filed a police report against the New Narrative website for allegedly publishing illegal paid advertisements during the general election campaign in July. ELD had issued 3 notices to Facebook on July 3rd, 7th and 8th to remove 5 unauthorized paid advertisements published by New Narrative. Any person convicted of conducting election activity without authorization may be fined up to $2,000 and/or jailed for up to 12 months.
According to the Animal and Veterinary Service, a highly contagious, acute and fatal disease that affects only rabbits was first detected in Singapore on Wednesday. Known as rabbit hemorrhagic disease, the AVS said it's not transmissible from animals to people and does not affect other animal species either. While there is no specific treatment available for the disease, supportive care can be provided for infected rabbits.
Well, the clinical signs to look out for include anorexia, dullness, prostration, nervous signs, groans and cries, or respiratory signs like breathing difficulties or discharge from the nose. AVS advises pet owners to minimize contact between your pet rabbits and visitors and other rabbits, especially if the owners are not aware of their rabbit's health status. Practice good personal hygiene before and after being in contact with your pets or other animals. Keep the housing and environment of the rabbits clean, as the virus can spread through contact with contaminated surfaces as well as via insects like flies. And of course, bring your pets to see the vet if you think they're unwell. Well, in other news, results of a new survey are out. 93% of Singapore residents were satisfied with the cleanliness of public places, a 9% increase from the findings in 2018.
The survey was conducted between last December and April this year, with the majority of the responses collected before the circuit breaker was imposed. The study also showed improvement in public perception of some spaces, like hawker centres, where there was a 25% increase in satisfaction.
But in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, many expressed continued concern about public hygiene and expect stricter enforcement of hygiene standards, particularly at public spaces, including childcare centres, elder care facilities, schools, food establishments and shopping centres.
Now, here to share more on the survey findings is Professor Paulin Tay Straughan, Professor of Sociology Practice at Singapore Management University. Hi, Professor. Thank you so much for setting aside time to speak with us. Professor, the top line result, 93% of respondents, they were satisfied with the cleanliness in Singapore's public spaces. What do you attribute this to? Perhaps our decades of campaigns on good hygiene, or is this year an anomaly due to Singapore's response to the pandemic?
This is a survey that we have done now 3 years in a row. So whenever we run a survey like this, it raises awareness, it raises public discourse on the issue. So we noticed that from 2017 to 2018, there was a stepped up improvement, particularly in the pain points, right? The wet markets, the hawker centres. So in 2019, when we started the survey in December, I suppose one expectation would be that since the awareness has been raised and attention is focused on these areas of public shared public spaces and the cleanliness, that there should be we expected that there should be some improvement, but of course the improvement was a lot higher than expected. And therefore, the second important factor, and that is the period that we did the survey, which was we started in December and we ended when circuit breaker stepped in on the 7th of April. So that is the period when we were on COVID alert already. So we believe that part of the response of the public is due to the efforts of the agencies in ensuring that cleanliness is kept at an optimum level.
What do you think are some of the perennial issues that we have seen for the past 3 years, 4 years?
We see that even with the improvement from this 2019 run, the pain points remain wet markets, hawker centres, right? So these are shared spaces that are very important to all Singaporeans, and therefore even more important that we work together, right, to play our part. So the difficulties that we see from 2017, even before 2017, is the ambiguity in roles and responsibilities. So let me illustrate with one particular example, tray return, right? We know that we're supposed to do our part. We know that, we should be returning our trays and not relying on an army of cleaning professionals, to mop up after us. However, depending on which establishment that you go to, the norms seem to be different, right? In some places, very clearly that you have to return your tray. In other cases, before you're even done, somebody comes along and clean up after you. And yet in other places, though you want to return your tray, you have no clue where the tray return is. So these ambiguities then makes it very difficult for us to promote that normative behavior, which is tray return, right? So these are areas that we need to continue to work on, because if we want Singaporeans to do the right thing, then make it easy for them, right? And the very important norms, establishment of norms will be the first step to make it very clear. We have about 30% or so, right, who say that they're not quite sure if they're supposed to return their tray, and then about 30% or so also say that I think that it should be the cleaner's responsibility. Right? So it tells us then that, there's work to be done in this area.
More on social norms and social mores. Now more than ever, hygiene and cleanliness are of public concern and a priority to both the authorities and Singapore residents. So do you think this will continue into a COVID-free world, or will people revert to old habits?
Well, COVID-19 has presented us with opportunities, right? Opportunities to do better when it comes to maintaining public cleanliness and public hygiene. So whether or not we can take advantage of this to change behavior depends on what we do in this period, where there's a lot of fear, where there's heightened awareness, and there's a lot of goodwill, right? That we want to make sure that we do our best to keep Singapore safe. So let's take advantage of this period, and let's think of ways in which we can, I think, sustain the good work that has started. And then I think we can all look forward to a cleaner Singapore.
Right. Well, that's a great note to end this discussion. Thanks very much once again for coming on the show. We've been speaking to Professor Paulin Tay Straughan, Professor of Sociology Practice at SMU.
The university released results of the Public Cleanliness Satisfaction Survey, which found that 93% of respondents were satisfied with the cleanliness of public spaces in Singapore. In the global headlines, according to an AFP tally based on official sources, the number of COVID-19 cases registered worldwide has topped 30 million. This comes as the World Health Organization warned of alarming rates of transmission across Europe. But it's Asia that registered the most new cases in the past week, with over 742,000 infections, of which more than 80% are in India.
Meanwhile, Australia will increase the number of citizens allowed to return home each week from 4,000 currently to 6,000. This will be done by mid-October. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said there were an estimated 24,000 stranded Australians wanting to return home, which the government has pledged to facilitate before Christmas. Australia is also looking to ease quarantine restrictions for returning visitor travellers from New Zealand, who account for 15% of returns.
Facebook is again being sued for allegedly spying on Instagram users, well, this time through the unauthorized use of their phone cameras. The lawsuit springs from media reports in July that Instagram appeared to be accessing iPhone cameras even when they weren't actively being used. Facebook denied the reports and blamed a bug which it said it was correcting for triggering what it described as false notifications that Instagram was assessing iPhone users' cameras.
Well, those are our top stories for today. And for more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Well, enjoy your weekend and we'll see you on Monday.